Well, welcome to today's conversation, and it's going to be an interesting conversation for sure. I have said to these guys, we're going to have an unrehearsed and unplanned conversation, and it is exactly that. We have not planned what we're going to say. We've not rehearsed what we're going to say. I'll set it up this way. So I've been doing some reflecting this week, and I've thought about strategically how God has placed people in my life over the years, and particularly black men. And I go all the way back to middle school, and I was thinking about this last night. So there was this guy in my, I think it was around fourth grade. His name was John Cherry. I still remember his name. And we would sit together in class, and we were all taking a test one day, and the teacher went out of the room and said, "No talking." And what I didn't know was that little speaker up on the wall, they could listen in as well as speak into the class. We finished taking the test. Well, the only two people talking in the classroom are me and John. And all of a sudden, the teacher busts in the door, and she's like, "John, Jeff, come to the front of the room." And so we get up, and we come to the front of the room. She tells us to put our hands on the chalkboard. We put our hands on the chalkboard, and she pulls out a yardstick, and she begins to give us a spanking. And I remember John went first. He got it first. And so she, about the second or third whack, she broke it in half on him. And I thought, well, I'm going to get the shorter end of the stick here. Well, I didn't get the shorter end of the stick. She doubled it up on me. And I thought, now that didn't seem fair. But anyway, so I'll never forget that. But that was John Cherry. Then I think all through high school, there was a couple people who were very strategic in my life. In college, there was a guy, his name was Jim Coates. He was an older black man. In fact, he was 30 years older than I am, and I actually reached out to him this week. First time I've talked to him in probably over 2 years. And I just called to thank him for the influence that he's had in my life. And then most recently, the guy that God has put in my life, who has had some incredible influence in my life, has been this man sitting next to me, and this is Charles Fitzgerald. Many of you know him. Charles is on staff here at Atlee. He oversees our facility at our north side. He's involved in so many things that we could spend the next 45 minutes talking about all the things that this guy does.
He does it all.
Yeah, and so let me tell you how this came to be. So I had planned a message. We had planned the message, and we're working on stuff. And last night at dinner time, I just was not feeling it, for lack of better words. It was one of those moments where I just felt like when I came on the stage, whatever I was going to say at that point was going to be from Jeff, and I couldn't guarantee that God had anything to do with it at that moment. And I'm sitting there just wrestling with that, and then I thought, maybe the best thing that we could do today is scratch that and just have an honest conversation. And who better to have a conversation with than this guy? And I say that because of this. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into, when my office was at the Northside campus, walk in there just down, just feeling heavy from whatever, and this man would walk into my office and he would begin to tell stories and encourage me, and within minutes I would be laughing, and it would just totally change my outlook for the day. And I'm convinced, because I'll be honest with you, I got nothing to say this morning. It's kind of scary sitting up here for that reason, but I don't. But I believe that God has something that he wants to say through this guy this morning to us, and hopefully we're going to get there and figure out what that is. But I'm just looking forward to our conversation. And when I tell you this happened, spur of the moment, I just looked. It was 6:29 when I texted him last night and said, "Hey," this was the question I asked him. "If you had the chance to address 1,000+ people, what would you say to them?" And I waited, and I waited, and I got no response. And I thought, okay, so let me tell him why I'm asking this question. And so I said, "Hey, would you be willing to join me and Trey on stage tomorrow for a conversation?" To which he replied, long after I'd said it, and I'm sitting there like, man, is he just like ignoring me or what?
That was after he debated to block you from his phone forever.
He's like, this is a setup. Yeah. I know it is. And so then he texts me, he says, "I'll call you in a little bit," which I know that meant he was in the middle of something. And he eventually called me, and he's like, "What's up? What's this all about?" But as Charles always does, he was more than willing to come and have a conversation with us this morning. So I'm looking forward to what he has to say, because I know it's probably going to be as encouraging or maybe more encouraging to me than anybody else. And so maybe I need to hear it more than anybody else does, bro. But I look forward to our conversation today. So I don't know if you've thought about that question. Over 1,000 people are watching this morning. It's been a crazy week. People's emotions have been all over the place, up, down, all around. We've had so many voices speaking into this, and it's hard just to make sense of what to do with it, even how to process everything that's going on. But if you had something, or have you thought about what you would say?
The first thing I thought about when the question popped up, for one, I mentioned to you, the devil is really busy. I'm looking at the pandemic, and then on top of this, we have the rioting, we got a lot going on, and it's pulling at my faith. How deeply rooted am I really? Do I allow the devil's work to continue, or do I continue to pray and be grounded and be rooted in doing good and being there for people and staying steadfast to what I truly believe in, that God is a God of love, understanding, and caring. And that's what I'm grounded in. I refuse to allow the negativity of the world to draw me out there. Yeah.
Charles, if anybody is undergoing a spiritual transformation, it would be this man right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had numerous conversations over the years about just about anything and everything, and to know and to see what God has done in your life is an encouragement to anybody who knows your story, who knows where you were versus where you sit today. And so in the middle of all of this, you say you've questioned your faith, but only in that, am I going to let the devil win, or am I going to choose to continue to do what? One of your phrases is, I know what it's like on that. I don't want to go back there. I'm enjoying. So speaking to that just a little bit.
Okay, I was just sitting here, and earlier I had thought about, in 1970, when we moved to Northside, I was part of the movement that decided to run all the white people out of Northside. And I started with John Marshall High School, the teachers going first. And to me, it was just fun. It was the thing to do, I was amongst a group of guys that's what we wanted to do. So today, to look at what's going on, it's a lot going on that nobody really have a real understanding on why they doing it, but they just doing it. They are followers and not leaders. So for me, I look at where I was, where I am today. God has given me a purpose. When I look at, you was talking about last week, what was really going on last week. I had 3 different families caught up in their addiction with kids becoming homeless. So my purpose was to stay grounded and stay connected to what my true purpose is, what God has relieved me from, the disease of addiction. Do I get caught up in the rioting and the police work and all that's going on? No, I have to stay focused on what's going on. And when you talk about Northside, we're dealing with hunger, we're dealing with evictions, we're dealing with the disease. So I'm a grounded person, and I have to always remember. So when I do look at the TV, when I do see the violence, when I do see, the question is, what would God do? What would he say about the way that I'm acting when I'm out here amongst the people that are doing the crazy? How would he really feel about, what I'm doing right now? Would would that be a godly thing for me to have my knee or to be beating on somebody else's kid? Who am I to reach out to get revenge on somebody else? Who am I to play God? That's always my question. Who am I to want to play God? That's where I'm at with that.
Now, you've played God before, though, haven't you?
Oh, quickly. I will take, yeah. I will come in and I will make a decision. I can be the judge, the jury, and the executioner all in one thought. And it would be easy and walk away from it. But then again, I was living in that world. I was doing the devil's work. you know. So basically, are we doing the devil's work today, or are we living, you know, towards God's purpose for us to love and put me in the place of those people that I'm doing harm to? You know, I have to remove myself. My life is not mine anymore. I had 49 years of my life, and I said, God, please don't let me turn 50 all messed up. So my life is gone. You know, he gave his son so that I could live. Now that I'm living more on a spiritual plane. You know, what would God do? What would he say in the behaviors that I would like to exhibit? A lot of times I get faced with some crazy stuff, and I be like, no, that's the devil acting out, because I know how, you know, Charles want to do something. I just can't act like that today.
So what would you say to those who are acting out? I mean, what are your thoughts about these riots and the protesting and all that?
You know, when you start looking at, the question is, what would God do? You know, I had this thought about, you know, when the son was on the cross, he said, forgive those, for they do not know what they do. You know, and I'm like, now that to be strung up and I mean, that's a tough piece, you know. So I have to look at, if he can have that forgiveness, why am I so bitter and so hard-hated against the people that are not doing quite as bad to me? You know, there's a better way. There's always a better way, you know, and I look for the better way. You know, I look for the peaceful solution to whatever the situation may be. Because crime, violence just don't bring about nothing but more violence.
Well, it's funny. I think there's a lot of people that they do want to make a difference during this time, but they don't know how, or maybe they're acting out in a way that isn't bringing a difference or isn't bringing help right now. And I was on a phone call with my friend. His name's Atlee. Young black man's got a great family. And I just asked him last night, I was like, hey, you know, what can I be doing to help you? What can I, you know, be doing during this time? What's going on? And he said, I just want you to go read 2 Corinthians 5 and to spend time doing that and then give me a call back. So I just spent time reading it. And this is what stood out to me in the verse. It says, so from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, kind of what you were saying, we do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and then gave us the ministry of reconciliation. And so I told him, I said, the word that stood out to me was reconciliation. And he said, well, that's really cool, you know, because that's what our world needs right now, is one, to be reconciled back to Christ, but also reconciled to one another. And so my question for you is, as you're seeing all this, my generation and even the generation under me is doing all kinds of things right now. They're posting on social media, all these different things and hashtags and stuff, because they're trying to care and they're trying to make a difference. And then they're going out protesting and doing some of those things. Do you think those things are helping, or are there other things that we could be doing to making a bigger difference during this time?
You know, I look at the situation at hand. I truly believe in the power of the church. A congregation, when you said 1,000 plus people, 1,000 plus people with the same purpose and the same goal in mind can create a difference, can make a difference. You know, no matter where we are, if the churches themselves were all on one accord and doing God's work, and doing reconciliation, you know, bringing us together, bringing people back to the church, back to God, you know, that would really make a difference. Because if the people that, the devil that we are fighting against, it's using people to fight against us. So, you know, we can't be of the world, you know, that's only doing the devil's work, that's doing his will, you know. So why not get together as a church, as a group, and do God's work, do God's will, you know. And the question pops back again, would this be okay with God, the act that I'm about to, you know, to take on today? Would this be okay? You know, and most of the time you will come up with the answer no. Yeah.
Well, one of the most dangerous prayers, but one of the best prayers that I find in the Bible is when David uses the phrase, search my heart, O God. and find if there's any wicked way in me, and then lead me in the path everlasting. And I think it's easy for all of us to point the blame at somebody else or to be doing this instead of searching ourselves and saying, God, what needs to change in me during this time? And who do I need to be during this time as well? And what does God want to do in my life and my heart? And so for you, what are some things that I guess God is speaking to you about during this time?
You know, I showed Jeff a card earlier that when I first got clean, a guy had presented it to me, and it basically saying, you know, whenever I find something going on, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. So when I find some discomfort, something going on, something wrong, I do have to search within me to find out how can I adjust me, or what is it about me that I can become active and become busy to help change what's going on today in the world. So my first adjustment is within me, you know, change me to examine what's really going on in the world today and then act on it. Or do I want to just be one of those people that continue to criticize, continue to talk about how bad it is, but yet and still I want to hide within my household. I don't want to come out. Don't want to speak out. You know, I don't want to get outside my comfort zone. What person do I really want to be? You know, God is asking me to go out and spread the word, spread the love, spread the joy. Or do I just want to hide in my house and say, well, you know, if it was me, I would. No, I have to go out. So I've been really active in my neighborhood, and that's really something that's new for me, because the pandemic, for one, is asking everybody to stay in. How can you stay in when you got so many families that are hungry, kids that are starving, people missing meals? You still getting people being evicted, people being put out. A landlord set a young lady with 4 kids out Friday because the boyfriend decided he was mad and he turned his key in. Wow. And how do you know what I'm saying? When I have resources and the resources that are needed, the city of Richmond shuts down at 12 o'clock on a Friday. So how do you help that situation if you're sitting in talking about, well, I don't want to be a part of, I want to remove myself? God asks us to be, you know, be there for others, you know. So it's not about me anymore. I'm a servant. I truly believe in being a servant.
Well, I think anyone who sees your life sees that, and all that you do for so many people and just continue to make a difference. And I know for me, that's been a big thing for me is, God, I want your will to be done in my life. And I know there's some things that have to change in my own heart and my own life in order to bring reconciliation to people. There's some situations I need to get uncomfortable. I need to go to some other places. I need to have different conversations with different people. And so I thank you for that challenge. I think that's something we all need to take into consideration during this time.
Yeah, I think you can pray for change, or you can be the change.
Yeah.
And really, if you're going to pray for change, you got to be willing to be the change. And if I know anything about you, it would be just that. You have given your life to bring about change for people, for individuals. And I remember writing in my notes for this week this phrase. I said, if you want to change the world, then start by changing an individual. And if you want to change, that individual, then just love the heck out of them. And ultimately, bro, you're the perfect example of that. Now, let's talk about, so we're talking about change. So there are a lot of people who would say, unless things have not unfolded the way they did this week, all the riots, all that this change would not have taken place. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't say basically you had the pandemic, okay, that locked a lot of people up. A lot of people became unemployed. A lot of people started spending closeness and time with people that they normally would have had distance from, okay? And then you throw in something that the situation with the police and the young man, that has been going on for years, but it didn't get the publicity that particular situation got. But so many people were at home, so many people were in front of the TV, so many people were already dealing with the frustration and the closeness of being, I need to be free, I need to be out, that you basically gave them an opportunity to come out and vent some anger. Anger really at the fact that, I'm unemployed, I'm hungry, I'm stuck in the house with my family. You got a lot going on when you double compound a situation. And that's basically where they came from. I can go back to my early days that it was known that if the police showed up on the scene and he took me to jail, that if I didn't keep quiet, I was going to get beat. That was known. I've had a situation where I turned myself in because I escorted 2 police officers off my property, and they said, we're going to have a warrant radio to us, and we're going to take you for a ride. These are things that's been happening for years. Now, all of a sudden, it's being videotaped. So until something is actually done about it, and it's done as a whole, as a group, a collective group of individuals, not just black, but blacks and whites, speaking on the same thing. Who gives certain people the authority to take a life? That's a godly thing. How can I now play God by taking your life or his life or abusing you and him and her? Now I'm taking out my frustration, my anger, all my thoughts and desires on an individual. Now I'm playing God. And I don't think nobody should have that authority.
What would you, so these folks who are protesting and they want to see change. So you said something to me last night on the phone that was interesting, and we were talking about change and would things have changed? Are things changing? And you said something to me that was very eye-opening. You asked me to look at the congregation. Mm-hmm. Who's in this congregation now versus a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And you asked me, is it more diverse today than it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
And it is.
And it is. You're right. And so I think that change is taking place. It's hard to speak into what people should or shouldn't do as it relates to this. I've said I don't have anything wrong. I don't see anything wrong with protesting. I think there is power in a collective voice. Mm-hmm. You said what if 1,000+ people were in agreement together, think about the change that we could bring about. I think we do cross the line when we take matters into our own hands and we begin to hurt and destroy other things, and we're no better than the people we're protesting against at that point. And so I do think there's a fine line there. I asked you this earlier, and we never really got to the answer, but what's it like for you being a black man in America?
Okay. For me, I'm enjoying life, on this side. At the very beginning of this, right, before I became on staff with Atlee, I used to Mark, Nelson, I used to always joke, when are y'all gonna bring some color in the building, right? And that was my personal joke. When are you gonna bring some color in the building? When are you gonna? But I'm real comfortable with who I am today because I'm a child of God, and I feel free. And I laughed at. I didn't mean me when I said bring some color in the building. I had no intention, being a member of being on staff at a church was so far from my thought. But to understand that change must take place. And if that's the change that needs to take place, then I need to be a part of it instead of wanting to rebel and wanting to say no and wanting to stay within my comfort zone. So what I looked at in being a part of Atlee Church, being a part of a lot of different organizations, I noticed the change. Whereas that there are more African American, more blacks attending different groups and congregations in different places. So I know there's a change. But if the change is going towards the good and more godly and more of a godly change, it's time, a prime time for the devil to step in and say, "Oh, I got to put a stop to this. I need to create a pandemic. I need to create a situation. I need to bring to light all the chaos and the confusion." Why are we not still focusing on all the good that's going on instead of everybody being eyeballing on the bad and the negative? There's still a lot of good, a lot of love, and a lot of godly activities going on in this world today. But right now, we're all focused on the devil's work. And me, myself, I refuse to allow that to happen. People say, "Did you see the news last night? I mean, who got shot? Who got killed? Who got ran over? No, Let's think about the family that we fed. Let's think about the young lady that we took off the streets with her and her kids. I like to look at the good and continue to strive to do the good and allow the negative to be taken care of by the people that want to do negative.
No doubt that has been something I've seriously noticed about you. And I think that's what often turns my day, because sometimes all I see is the negative. And as I think part of it has to do with what I'm doing. How do I speak into that? How do I encourage people? I can't turn a blind eye to all the negative that's going on. But in doing that, I think I often forget the good that is going on. And you've always been really good at helping me go, yeah, that's going on, but also know that this is going on. Don't lose sight of the families we're feeding every week through collecting cans of food. And sometimes because that doesn't capture the media's attention, right, we don't see all that and we lose track of that. And you've always been really good of helping bring that back into focus for me. You sent me a text earlier this week about a friend of ours' experience here in Hanover. Had visited someone and some things unfolded and one of the things that you and I have talked about, we have a tendency, because one person does something wrong, then everybody who's like that person is wrong. Whether a policeman does something wrong, so every policeman's bad. A white man does something wrong, so all the white people are bad. A black man does something wrong, all the black people are wrong. And so as it relates in this particular case, a friend of ours was in a predominantly white neighborhood. He was a black man visiting a black family, and he was getting ready to leave their house when a policeman pulled up, and he said he didn't hear the conversation, but he was told the conversation after the policeman left. There were two kids riding bikes in the neighborhood, and somebody called, said there's some suspicious people riding around the neighborhood. So the cop pulls up, tells the parents what's going on, and this person got pretty ticked off, and rightfully so. It's like, I read his text, his Facebook post, and you understand at that point why they're mad and why they're hurt, and you were cautious to say, but that doesn't give us the right to go out and tear things up and destroy stuff. And then you even gave advice what this person should have done. But then you gave, as a policeman, you said he should have gone back to the caller and said, hey, you need to know that these people are part of your community. They live here. Now, whether that happened or not, we don't know, right?
It didn't happen.
I doubt it did either. But then you gave an example of your experience in Chesterfield one night, which was just the opposite of that. And just as a reminder, so share a little bit of that and the point behind that being that you can't group everybody.
Okay. In Chesterfield, there was an event hosted by Caritas at Swift Creek Reservoir. Coming from Northside, coming from my neighborhood, Chesterfield is labeled as Arrestafield. All blacks get arrested when we go to Chesterfield. So in me knowing that, here I am, stepping outside of my comfort zone. I'm invited to an event. I got to go. I'm a part of Caritas. So in the process of trying to find Swift Creek Reservoir, somewhere I'd never been before, I got lost. So I'm riding around. I got a time to be there. I mean, it's a speaking engagement. And I see a Chesterfield police. Okay, I'm gonna try my luck, and I flagged them down. And I asked them, I'm like, I'm lost. I'm trying to find this event. And he said, oh, sure, I'll lead you there. Follow me. Now, for me to even think about flagging him down was me stepping outside of everything that I was told, everything that was taught to me, and trusting in the process. I can't label all Chesterfield police officers as a Westerfield. I can't do that. It's about trusting the process, as they say. Do I believe that all white people are the same, all black people are the same, all police officers, all government officials? I can't. We are individuals. We're all, each and every one of us are individuals. So, we need to be looked at as individuals. So I don't judge people. I get to know you before I decide what side of the fence that you might be on. Because I truly believe that the devil is really placing a lot of people within my midst to pull me back to his side, and I just refuse to. I put on my shield. I'm like, nah, not today. We can't do that.
So I have a family. I got some kids I'm raising. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying my best. I know there's other families that are watching that have kids, and they're trying to raise them and teach them how to love each other better. What can we do as parents for the next generation coming up behind us? What can we do to help them reconcile and bridge the gap between races, between loving people for people? How can we as parents do a better job of that? Any advice that you would give? I know you're a dad as well, so anything that you would encourage us to do?
Where I'm a dad part came in. Where you get? Hold on.
I'll try not to tell people that. Can y'all bleep that out in there?
But I really want to say let's kill the color thing. Let's stop looking at black, let's white, Mexican, Indian. Let's kill the color thing, the color, and just look at individuals as an individual. We are all God's people. We need to experience the love that He's given up for us, and to share that love with each and every individual. I practice loving people even though they don't love themselves. I entered into a program where people said, we will love you until you learn to love yourself. And I had no clue what that meant, And what I realized that the way that I was treating myself in all those 33 years of being out there in the streets in my addiction, is no way on earth I could have loved me and treated me that way. And those people showed me love. They showed me kindness. They gave me information to live by. Because I found out I had a lot of bad information. So, we need to learn to love on people until they can learn to love themselves. Because a lot of people are broken. They have no clue what love is. When I told you about, I had an opportunity to go to Woodlake to an event. Kids coming home from college, and I found out what community was all about. Different neighbors came over and brought a pie, cake, or a pot and welcomed these kids home.
Wow.
From college. And I was like, now that's community.
That's awesome.
That is unheard of where I came from in the hood. We ain't bringing no pot to my house. But I learned the meaning, the true meaning of community. Why we can't do more community in our communities?
Now let's just clarify something for you keep
What?
saying the word pot. You're talking a cooking pot,
cooking
right?
pot.
Okay,
Yeah,
just make sure that everybody understands.
Cooking pot. Let's cook it. Let's get that. Not that other pot.
That's a real community growth there.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with that. So.
But awesome. That's the true meaning of community, and I had to learn that in a neighborhood where I was the only black. the true meaning of community. So why we can't be a community wherever we go? Why we can't bring community into the communities? You know, and that's what I like. I be practicing over at the church. Why we all can't be a family in Northside? Why we all can't be a community? And get each and every individual group to work together and be as one.
And see, I love that you say that because it's not something you just say. This is something you live out every day. And I see it every time I'm around you. Even when you got your Bluetooth speaker in, you think Charles is talking to you, but he's not. He's talking to somebody on the phone, but he's always encouraging people, loving people, and it doesn't matter who they are, what they've been through, what they got going on. You always lend a listening ear to somebody, and you choose to love them as Christ loves them. And that's something that I admire a lot about you, and I thank you for doing that because it sets an example for me, and hopefully it sets an example for my kids, and watching people like you continue to love like you do.
It's very challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, there are those who say we want to see change, but then there are those who work to bring about that change. And brother, I know you've challenged me, even in what I do every day. Okay, it's easy to stand on the stage and preach a message and encourage people to do the right thing, God's thing. But beyond just standing on this stage and okay, how can I get better involved? How can I do more?
But you did. You remember the challenge I gave you? You asked me when was I going to come to church. I said, when you can come to the hood and hang out with me. And you spent some time on my front porch, right? So I'm saying, step outside your comfort zone, and you did. And I encourage more people to do that. Don't sit back behind your little wall and judge what's going on. If you really want to make a change, come outside. Come out and be a part of the change.
Charles has got a great front porch.
Okay.
Love you to
And a
come
good
over.
view of everything, huh?
Yeah.
Charles always knows what's going on. So I want to back up. This might play into Trey's question about how could we be better parents, and maybe even beyond that. So you talk about having bad information. All right. So give an example, because I think we all, even in this week, we've heard if you're watching the news at all, keeping up on stuff, man, you're hearing all kinds of things, and some of it's contradicting to others, and it can be hard. But when you say bad information, speaking of that.
Okay, my bad information. I am 64 years old. I'm the youngest of 7. So in my growing up, in my early years, in my early days, my family instilled in me, stay away from the white man. You're going to get locked up. You're going to get hung. They're going to find you in the alley somewhere dead. And for a lot of years, like I showed you in 70 when I moved into Northside, that was the target. I was my opportunity there as a teen to get even and to get back. And to find out that all of that information they gave me was okay back then when they were young, but it's not fitting to what's going on in the world today. Because a lot of people that are harmed didn't know me, didn't do nothing to me. I was setting out to harm people that didn't even have a clue on why he chasing me up the street? Why is he running me out of the neighborhood? It was unheard of for a white person to get caught on 3rd Avenue and Northside. That you was late. That's all I got to say. It was a wrap. But to understand that I was feeding off the information that my brothers and elders had given me, that really wasn't the information I should have been living by today. Now, if I really think back on who am I to want to police the neighborhood? Who am I to want to police the school? Now I'm actually taking on God thing. Who am I to play God to decide that these people shouldn't be in this community? So I had to watch that. And I take that to, I think I shared with you, when I was in the treatment program, not just being racist and racial, the gay thing. I want to run all the gay people out of the treatment program. My brain said, put all of them in a barrel, set them afire. It said, who are you to play God to decide that they shouldn't get this gift? Because, a treatment program to have my addiction removed, That's a gift from God. Because for 30-some years, I couldn't figure out how to. But now I want to decide who should get this gift that was so freely given from God. I'm clean. Now I want to decide you shouldn't have it. Oh, you might get some. You don't need none. Who am I to want to play God? And I had to realize that they too have a right to this new way of living. So I would love for everybody to have a piece of this new way of living, because God is saying to me on a regular basis, you can always go back to where you were. And I don't want no more of that. I'm done with that. So I'd rather do, God's work. I would rather reach out to people that are still struggling, people that are, waving in their faith. I'd rather, take a look. God woke you up this morning. Take a breath. Yeah, that was free. It cost you nothing. But a lot of people didn't wake up this morning. So, if you don't think just that breath, that fresh breath of air is a blessing, then you done missed something. Yeah.
Yeah, how many times you told me that? Just
let's do that. Yeah, it ain't cost you nothing.
Didn't cost you anything.
And think about all those that didn't get to do that this morning. Yeah.
Well, bro, we could sit here and talk for another hour as far as I'm
Forever.
concerned. But so ending on this bad information, I think we all get bad information from time to time about, and we have a tendency to group people together. I just, as you were talking, a couple of things that if I think would highlight our conversation. The thought that if all of us as a church, let's just say Atlee Community Church, and honestly, there's a couple thousand of us that regularly attend this church and are part of it, and even bigger than that probably be with our online campus. What if we were all in this together and like-minded as Christ called us to be? In fact, one of the things that he said to his early followers was, if we were and are like-minded, that it would change the world, and people would be like, how is that possible that these two guys who are as different as they can be and yet can be so connected, love each other, and that's only through Christ. And so I think about that. Be the change versus just praying for a change and wanting a change, but being, again, at the spur of the moment, the last place you wanted to be was sitting in this chair this morning in front of all these people talking, but yet you
showed up.
You gave your life to Christ many years ago, and you said, God, whatever you want, I'll do it. And I wonder what it would look like if all of us had that, and we were willing to be the change, not just want to see things change or pray about things changing. I love that phrase, kill the color. I did a series years ago that I've thought about bringing back again, but there's only one race, and that's the human race, and created by God, and in all of its color, we get to see the one true God. There's so much more I know about God because I know you, than if I just knew somebody who was like me. But wow, that's powerful. I'm trying to remember notes. We will love you until you learn to love yourself. Isn't that what God did for every one of us? I will love you until you learn to love yourself. Anyway, thank you for your encouragement.
You're welcome.
And I hope that you guys have been encouraged by something that you heard. Maybe you'll think differently. Maybe you don't agree with everything that you heard. That's okay. You're entitled to that. But I just wanted to have a real conversation. And I trust that somehow God uses this today to encourage you in the middle of all of this craziness that's going on. We want to end our time together with just a prayer, praying for each other, praying for you guys, praying for our world. And so we're going to take just a couple of moments to do that, and we hope that you will join us. And I'm going to ask Trey to begin, and then if you'll pray, and then I'll close this out.
Okay. Cool. Well, God, we just humbly come before you today and just realize that nothing else matters without you. And Lord, that you taught us how to love. You showed us and demonstrated it on a cross. And so, God, I pray that you continue to help every single one of us love like you loved us. Lord, I thank you for the living example of Charles. And God, not only does he talk this stuff, God, that he lives it out day in and day out. And his love for you is contagious. And God, I pray that you continue to use him in a mighty way. God, that his platform would just continue to expand to new places because of the obedience that he has towards you. And God, I thank you for this conversation today. I pray that somehow, some way that you use it to help people, to break old mindsets, God, to encourage us, God, to be the church and to form better community with what you've given us. And so, God, I just ask today that you continue to help us love you better, love each other better, and ultimately, God, be better followers so we can be better leaders. We love you, we praise you, and we, God, thank you for who you are and how you're leading us in our lives today.
Amen. Dear God, I want to come to you and say thank you. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to reach out and touch the lives of so many people with the message of hope. Dear God, that we all are your followers, that we all are your people, that we all need to share more love, more understanding, and more compassion for others. Dear God, that we can all take a look at what we're doing today, what we're going through today, and ask yourself, what would Christ do? You know, my prayer is that we find more love, more peace, and more happiness in the world today, and to tell the devil that he is a lie, that there is joy in the world today, that we are a people of one today, and that the church is united. The church is united as one today. Dear God, I come to you and say thank you for another opportunity to be a servant of the Most High. Amen.
Father, I think of the song we sang earlier and just about the holy moment. And Father, whenever I'm with Charles, there is something holy about our conversations, my moments with him, Lord, because I do believe I get to see a piece of you that I don't get to see in a lot of folks. Father, I thank you for his example. I thank you for his challenge to not just sit back and want to see things change, but being willing to do whatever it is and to put himself in uncomfortable situations to bring about change. And Father, I pray that you would just continue to bless him, bless his life, bless the influence that he has on countless number of people. Father, of all color, Lord, to challenge us all to be better people. Father, that last thing, Father, this idea that you would love us until we learn to love ourselves. Father, at the end of the day, somehow I feel like maybe that's at the heart of it. I know we changed our vision statement, God, because of that, because we realize that we can't love others until we learn to love ourselves, and we can't love ourselves until we understand the incredible love that you have for us, in spite of the things that we've done. Our Lord, you love us. We matter to you. We are your treasured possession. Father, I pray that every single one of us would own that, would be able to take hold of that. God, because if we know how much we're loved, then we can't help but help others know that they're loved as well and do what we can to love them. So, Father, I pray, God, I just thank you for this conversation. And God, I pray that all of us would find a challenge in it, that we would hear a word from you today. And Lord, I just thank you for what you'll do. God, I do pray for our country. Lord, starting from the top down and from the bottom up. Lord, God, there's some serious change that needs to take place, but it has to start in our hearts. And God, if our heart doesn't change, our attitudes, our actions will never change. And so, God, I pray in the middle of this pandemic, in the middle of all of this unrest that our country is experiencing, that God, you would bring about some kind of revival, Lord, in our land. Lord, I think of the verse that we shared a couple of weeks ago. If my people who are called by my voice will humble themselves and pray. God, I pray that as followers of Christ, that we would find ourselves praying every single day for you, for your goodness, and for your love to prevail in our country. And God, that we would ask that it starts with us. Lord, you said if we will humble ourselves and pray, that you will, and confess our sin, that you'll forgive us our sin, and God, that you'll heal our land. And so, God, I pray that we will take time to take a look at ourselves and look at the sin within our own life. Forget about the sin in somebody else's life. Let's just deal with our own sin. And God, find healing and forgiveness in that. And then, God, the change that comes about, I think, will be because of the change that we allow you to not only work in our lives, but to work through our lives to bring about. And so, God, I just pray for that. Lord, I thank you for your goodness. I thank you for your grace, and I thank you for our time together this morning. Father, we love you, we praise you, and we pray all of this in the name of Jesus Christ. And we all agreed together and said,
Amen.
Amen. Well, thanks for being a part of this today. And again, I just want to encourage you to pray and pray and pray and take that challenge from God serious as far as humbling ourselves, looking inwardly, confessing our sin, and let's collectively, when I think if 1,000 plus, actually well over 2,000 of us did that, just started with this group of people, the difference that it would begin to make in our country. And so listen, have a great week. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
We hope this message will help you explore, experience, and express God's grace and truth for your life. If Atlee Church has made a difference in your life, or you have questions about today's message, we'd love to hear from you. Simply email us at stories@atleechurch.org. Check out our website for more information about small groups, upcoming events, and how you can help financially support Atlee Church so that we can continue to share messages like this one. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so that you can receive new podcasts every week. You can also find our podcast on iTunes. Thanks again, and hope to see you next Sunday.